What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another video. And I thought today we would talk about Disney Plus and how are they going to be successful moving forward with the Star Wars franchise and with some of their other franchises as well within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I want to say a special thank you to Aaron N. He sent me a couple of interesting articles that kind of got my wheels turning, what little wheels are left up here. And I kind of did some research just on viewership and subscriber growth with Disney Plus. What has worked with The Mandalorian that has made it a mainstream cultural success? And why did the Book of Boba Fett not work? What are some of the other content within Disney Plus's kind of catalog of shows that have worked well? And what are people watching? How can Disney repeat the success of The Mandalorian and avoid the mistakes of the Book of Boba Fett? And look, some of you might have enjoyed the Book of Boba Fett. Me personally, I thought it was a pile of bantha poodoo. The only good episodes were the ones where the Mandalorian were featured. And in general, I thought that it was kind of a mess of a show. It didn't do very well. And I kind of had that feeling going into it. If you guys go back and look at some of my early videos when the teaser trailers dropped for the Book of Boba Fett, I was like, I don't know about this. And I was proven correct, in my opinion. I don't think it was a very good show. It was very mediocre at best. And I would actually argue that it's worse than mediocre. But let's talk about generally what's going on at Disney and what has worked in the past. I wanted to show you this. This was an interesting chart I found. And so this is Disney Plus new customers. So this red line tracks new customers as they were added to Disney Plus. And so here in August of 2019, the Disney Plus quote-unquote pre-sale, I don't know why anyone would buy a pre-sale, but that was what this is, when this prices or the subscriptions were made available at probably at a discounted price, I would imagine. So there was a little bit of a spike there. But you'll notice one thing, that when Disney Plus launched in around November of 2019, there was a massive spike. And I don't think it's any coincidence that the first season of The Mandalorian came out in November of 2019. And I question whether they would have seen this massive spike in new subscribers had they not had a flagship show like The Mandalorian to launch alongside the entire Disney Plus, brand and product. And I think that was a huge decision on their part that proved to be massively successful by starting Disney Plus, launching the service alongside a flagship product like The Mandalorian. Was a really smart move, and you can see the massive spike here that took over. And it came back down to earth a little bit, obviously, and there's some other kind of important points that are non-Star Wars related in terms of new shows that were released and things like that. But for the most part, it's been kind of a steady new increase in subscribers. So the red line is not total subscribers. The red line is new subscribers added. And you can see this. My point of showing this chart is how successful would that launch have really been had they not had The Mandalorian alongside with it? Would it have been around 250, 200, 150? I don't know the answer to that. But I do think that having The Mandalorian was a main reason why we saw this massive jump in new subscribers. And so along those lines, now let's take a look at a chart that tracks total subscribers. And you can see here Q1 of 2020 is when this chart starts. That's kind of right after the launch of the service in November of 2019. And again, also when Mandalorian Season 1 launched. But as you can see, they've had nothing but a nice steady uptick in subscriber growth. And I didn't pull up a chart to go alongside this, but Netflix has obviously struggled here recently. They've lost a lot of subscribers, and their stock has gotten hammered, absolutely hammered. So the question is going to be, how do they continue growing the Disney Plus subscriber base? And one of the keys, in my opinion, is going to be growing and continuing to produce not only Star Wars content, but Marvel Cinematic Universe content. And so one of the interesting things is the Book of Boba Fett, when it launched, it had a viewership of 13% higher than Hawkeye. And thanks again to Aaron for sending me this article. And this is what kind of was the impetus for the video. But Anyway, we said when it came Wednesday through Sunday, viewership on Disney Plus's Book of Boba Fett, and we're talking about the premiere episode, episode 1, 1.7 million U.S. households tuned in to learn about the bounty hunter's origins in the first episode. So that's really interesting to me because, they're saying, look, it's up 13% versus Hawkeye. But I think now, hindsight being 2020 and what the Book of Boba Fett was proven to be, it was just kind of a mess. It was not a coherent story, in my opinion. And the only good episodes really were the ones that furthered along the Mandalorian universe, the Mandoverse, as it's nicknamed by a lot of media members. We got to see Grogu and his choice between staying with Luke to train under him in a Jedi Academy or going back to the Mandalorian. And we also got some more clarity on the Mandalorian and the Darksaber, things like that. So there were a lot of important points within the Mando universe that were pushed forward in the Book of Boba Fett, and I would argue that those were easily the best episodes. I think that we could all probably agree with that. Anything related to the Mandalorian in the Book of Boba Fett season 1, or the only season if it proves to be the only season, those were the only decent episodes in my opinion. Everything else was just kind of a mess. So that keep that in mind, is that the pushing forward of the Mando universe, and I want to get back to that point here in a second. And let's take a quick look before we kind of talk about the future for Star Wars and for Disney Plus content, and kind of the moving forward here in 2022 and into 2023. Let's take a look at this. This is an interesting chart again that Aaron sent me, and you can see here that this tracks the number of minutes watched per show. And so for the season 1 of Mandalorian, 5.42 billion minutes were watched by viewers. And these little squares with the numbers, the green numbers, those are the number of episodes for that season. So there was only 8 episodes in season 1 of The Mandalorian, but it still got 5.42 billion. The Mandalorian season 2 had a massive number of 8.38 billion. But the thing you got to keep in mind is that they had 16 episodes. It was double the episodes. They had double the episodes, but they didn't get double the subscribers. But that's still a huge number, and that's easily the largest out of all the recent Disney Plus content. WandaVision, 4.8 billion. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, 4.15. The interesting one is this one, Loki. Loki only had 6 episodes, but it did 5.23 billion minutes. And according to this 6 episodes first season had the highest average viewing time of any Marvel or Star Wars series so far, with about 872 million minutes per episode. So that's really interesting, is that this one had one of the fewest number of episodes, but it's kind of viewed as the most successful because that has been watched the most. Hawkeye had 3.46, and I think that's an underrated series. It was 6 episodes. I would recommend you go and watch it. Give it a watch. I actually like that much better than I did the Book of Boba Fett. The interesting thing is I have not watched Loki yet, but I plan on watching it now after seeing this. But Hawkeye, I think, blows the Book of Boba Fett out of the water in terms of entertainment value. Book of Boba Fett had 4.4 billion. I think a part of that is driven by the fact that the Mandalorian appeared in some of those later episodes. I would love to know a breakdown of minutes watched per episode. I bet the first episode in the Book of Boba Fett, the last episode, had pretty good viewership numbers, and then the Mandalorian episodes probably had some of the best. Some of those other filler episodes where it's only focused on Boba Fett, I bet they didn't do well at all, especially after the first episode, and it kind of declined from there. So it's just some interesting viewership numbers. I just found it pretty fascinating to see how well, especially Loki did, relative to the fact that it was only 6 episodes. So just a pretty surprising number then. And so that got me asking the questions of why was Loki so successful? I haven't even watched it yet myself, but I did find this article, and I'll put a link to all these articles in the video description. But this was an important point, and probably why it was as successful as it was. He said Loki far outshines WandaVision and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier for the very simple reason that it was the only show that successfully told an interesting character-driven story while also advancing the story of the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe and setting up future installments. That, I think, is an important point that I hope that Disney learn, and Marvel and Lucasfilm, I hope that they learn that, because I think that that is where the success was found for The Mandalorian and those episodes that were actually decent within the Book of Boba Fett. They advanced the larger story, but they were also telling a really interesting character-driven story. The Mandalorian and Grogu are interesting characters. They have a cool history. You know, it's still somewhat mysterious. We're still kind of learning the all of the lore related to the Mandalorians. The Book of Boba Fett was not interesting because Boba Fett was not really an interesting character. He was a very much a two-dimensional character, and they didn't do a great job with kind of fleshing out Boba Fett's story. I just thought it was a really weak story. So, you know, this writer mentions the fact that it's feeding into the larger Marvel Cinematic Universe, and we all know how successful that's been. And I hope that moving forward with some of these other shows that are coming out for Star Wars, that they do the same thing. And finally, I wanted to kind of finish off here and talk about some of those other shows. Obviously, by the time you're watching this video, I'm pre-recording this because I'm going to be out of town. But Obi-Wan, the first two, I believe, episodes are going to premiere on May 27th. I'm hopeful that that kind of pushes forward some of the other shows. It obviously is a prequel of sorts because it takes place before A New Hope. But hopefully we can get some more characters that could have some side stories, whether it's the Inquisitorius or Asajj Ventress, maybe. Some of those other interesting characters. The Mandalorian Season 3, they're saying that the release date's going to be late 2022 or early 2023. I think that The Mandalorian is kind of on a peg on its own, and you know, as long as Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are kind of in charge of that universe, that it's going to continue to do well. The one that I personally am most excited about is Andor. I think Andor has the potential to be a really, really great series. If you go watch some of the making of videos that are out there for Andor, they are not sparing any expense. They are doing an incredible job of expanding what was done already in the fantastic Rogue One movie. And I think that this has the potential to either be a one-off type of thing, since it's kind of set so far back in the Star Wars universe. But I think it has the potential to be so good, just because of the quality of the actors and the fact that they can, again, flesh out some of the characters. Ahsoka, obviously we know all about that. Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau are going to be in charge of that. That looks like it's going to be fantastic. My only hope there is that they bring out some of the characters that are rumored to be there, such as the Grand Admiral Thrawn, Ezra Bridger, Sabine Wren. I think if they go that route and kind of incorporate some of those comic book characters and bring them into the live-action universe of Star Wars, it's going to be a no-brainer success. Rangers of the New Republic, I don't even think this is going to happen personally. I doubt that even happens. The Acolyte is an interesting one because I think that there's not much known about it, but it's rumored to take place towards the end of the High Republic era, and I think there's a good chance that the Acolyte could be about Keith Trennis, who's one of the main protagonists within the High Republic universe in the comics. So I think that Marvel and not Marvel, but Lucasfilm and Disney are being very careful with the High Republic universe. They have a plan in place with novels and comics to kind of flesh out the stories, and then eventually they're going to bring that to live action. And my guess is that that's what the Acolyte is going to be about. It's going to be about some of those young Jedi. So we'll see what happens. And obviously we got young Lando. There's all kinds of other projects in place, but I think that the main premise of this video is that it needs to be character-driven, and it needs to advance the story of the larger universe for Star Wars, especially the Mandoverse, since that's proven to be a mainstream success. Only time will tell to see if this happens or not, but I just thought I'd share some of this interesting data that I found, and thanks again to Aaron for the help. If you have any questions, let me know. I'd love to hear some comments from you guys. As always, thanks so much to my subscribers and my Patreon team. I'll be back soon.